Welcome back to the Holistic Meets Education Unfiltered podcast. So today I'm going to be interviewing my dear friend and fellow co-host Candice Smith. And before we jump into the interview, I just want to let you guys know that we filmed part one where Candice interviewed me, and that will be available on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. And also, if you haven't already, make sure to check out our first episode where we talked about breaking up with the education system. Okay, so that's all the little details that I wanted to go over. So now we're going to jump into the interview to get to know Candice a little better. And I actually met Candice a little over 2 years ago. And even though we know each other, there is a lot that I don't know about her. So I'm excited to see what she's going to be sharing with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the questions. So the first question, Candice, I have for you is, where did you grow up and how did that affect who you are today?
That is a very, very in-depth question. I love that question. Where did I grow up and how does that affect me today? I think growing up, your experiences, your family dynamic, all of that plays a vital role in who you become as an adult. And my upbringing definitely played a big role in who I am today. So I grew up in a single parent home. My father was military and my mother and my dad separated when I was 3 years old. And that kind of was my first, it was kind of like the first thing in me understanding separation. Well, not understanding, but having that separation from a parent, experiencing separation anxiety. A lot of things kind of took place growing up. Like I'm sure other people have experienced traumatic events, but with me, one that stands out the most was being violated by a family friend, and at the age of 4, actually. And I remember being this happy, go lucky child, social, just a very kind of kind child. And I remember after that traumatic event took place, and of course my dad separating from my mom, it all happened around the same time, which is crazy. However, it really, really caused me to become timid, to become silent. I really didn't say too much in school. It was almost like my confidence. I wouldn't, feel comfortable raising my hand for anything. I don't know. I just always kind of had this perception about myself as a child after that, like I wasn't good enough. And so being at school, I always, wanted to please my teachers. I always wanted to please my mom. I always wanted to do good. So in school, at the elementary level, I always made good grades. I had a few friends. However, things were going to change again because we moved and I ended up going to a different school. I begged my mom. I said, Mom, please, I don't want to go to another school. Let me stay at this school because I'm familiar, I'm comfortable. However, I'm a child, right? I don't dictate that. That is an adult to do. So we moved and I ended up going to a private school. And that private school was my first experience with colorism, and my first experience with a student or a child bullying me. I had never experienced being bullied, at all. And I remember it was a 5th grade. I'll never forget. I came into class and he said, "Why are you so fat? Why are you so Black?" And I remember thinking to myself, wait a minute, like what? I don't consider myself fat. And what's wrong with, my skin complexion? Like, what is the problem? And so it kind of carried on from that day forward, where I began to truly have a complex about myself. And of course, going home to the things happening at home was extremely traumatic. My mom being a single mom, doing everything, you know, she could do to provide by herself. There was a lot of stress on her. So again, being this people pleaser, I wanted everything to kind of be peaceful. You know, I didn't want any arguments. I didn't want my mom to be upset about anything. So anything she would say, you know, to do, I did. You know, I didn't have a voice still. I wouldn't tell her really what was going on at school in the bullying, and I wouldn't really bring too many things to her about how I was feeling. And so let's fast forward it. Okay, this bullying, I became a bully because hurt people what? Hurt other people. So 7th grade, I had a lot of anger, a lot of frustration within myself. And I would bully students in the class, and 8th grade came and it changed. I changed, I guess maturity, I don't know. However, I started to get teased and bullied even more. And that carried into high school, my freshman and sophomore year. It became really, really, really severe with the bullying. You know, I remember going to school in high school and these young men literally smacking me at school, and I felt again violated. But what if that trigger? That took me all the way back to when I was violated as a little girl. And again, I had no voice to say anything. I just remember begging my mom, please, will you take me out of the school? Because I really am feeling depressed. That was my first feelings of depression. And they say 20% of teenagers are going to experience depression in their life. And I guess I was a part of that 20%, but I experienced that. And so my mom took me out of that environment, and I enjoyed the high school, you know, I was in. So I would say growing up, I experienced a lot of traumatic events in my personal life and at school. And having a mother who, you know, was a single mom, it definitely taught me how to be resilient. It definitely taught me how to be strong, and being bullied and, you know, being violated at such a young age and having all of these events occur helped shape who I am today, because I'm a true advocate for children who have trauma, for children who have unmet needs, you know, happening in their life, barriers that cause them to, you know, that impedes on their education in their academics. And so, the person I am now, I'm a very compassionate person because I've gone through so much. So I really empathize with a lot of people's stories and children. Yeah, so I would say that's just a snippet, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Candice. I know there's a lot of people out there that are listening that also have maybe a childhood where they had to, you know, overcome a lot of adversity like yourself. And then, you know, seeing you come out on the other side and not only evolve, you know, as a person, but now in turn, you're someone that is helping those in a position similar to, you know, how you were, you know, in your formative years. So I think that's so beautiful. And again, thank you for sharing that story about you. So the next question I have for you is on a bit of a lighter note. If you had to eat one meal or food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Okay, you said one meal. So I'm gonna, I have to think on this, you all, because it's one meal. Just one.
Just one.
So, you know, I'm thinking, right? Because I'm like, okay, I could eat one food that I really, really like, but then I have to look at my figure Like if I ate this every single day, like how big would I actually get? But no, I'm teasing you all. But one meal that I would eat every day would have to be seafood. It would have to be fried fish or any kind of fish, to be honest, except catfish. I do not like catfish. So any kind of fish with rice and a vegetable. Yeah, I could eat that every day. I could.
Awesome. Okay. What is your favorite season and why?
My favorite season is, of course, autumn/fall. And the reason I love it, I was born in that season. But no, I really, really just love the aesthetics, right, of autumn. I love the beauty. I love how the leaves change colors from red to orange to yellow. I just love that the leaves are falling. It always reminds me of the things that are kind of falling off of us. And God is kind of bringing in growth, new things to come, how the seasons are starting to change. I love how it's not hot, but it's not too cold. It's a little windy. You can wear your scarf, your jacket, your boots. Yeah, you can look really, really cute. In fall. So yeah, that is my favorite season.
I love that, Candice. That's also my favorite season as well. And Candice and our birthdays are very close to each other. So fellow, fall birthday girls. Okay. If you could be remembered for one thing in this lifetime, what would you want it to be?
Well, I definitely want to be remembered for my integrity. I am a person who I live based on principle. I live based on code. I don't know. It's like it's kind of always been in me to be that way. And so I want people to remember me as a person who, no matter what, stood up for what was righteous, who was honest, who showed compassion, who had empathy, for other people. And every time you come around me, my goal honestly is to leave people better than they were before they came and we were in each other's space. So I definitely want to be remembered for somebody who was radical, empowered to make change, no matter what that looked like. If I needed to stand alone, just to do what was right. And I love this quote. I go by this quote. My grandmother, love her to pieces, but she told me about this quote by Maya Angelou, and I really live by that. When Maya Angelou said, it's better to, have your soul. I'm just paraphrasing. It's better for your soul to be right than you to gain a profit, right? So you do what's right, no matter what. Even if it's not profitable, it will be right with your soul. So that is something that I truly live by. And yeah, that's how I would want to be remembered, definitely, as a truth teller.
Absolutely. And Candice, for the time that I've known Candice, she's just so, she speaks her truth, number one, but she is so like she's, mentioned, very honest and integral, and always, no matter the circumstance, will see the perspective of everyone, and she will take that into consideration, when conversing or engaging with that person, right, as to not hurt or offend anybody. So that's a wonderful thing, and not many people have that quality. Okay, the next question is, if you could travel anywhere within the United States and or the world, where would you like to travel?
So I'm excited about this question because I took a class in college and the professor told us to watch a documentary on the presidents. And I'm like, I don't want to watch a documentary about presidents. What in the world? And as I was watching this documentary, it was about nature. It was about the different national parks and how that kind of correlates with God and how it correlates with man. And watching that documentary and seeing how the presidents, all the presidents, well, majority, have visited these national parks and kind of, unpacking their story of what they got out of that experience, I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed that documentary, and it definitely inspired me to want to visit Yellowstone National Park, to really just be one with God's creation and experience that beautiful kind of environment, with the buffaloes and with the trees and just I don't know, just everything, and kind of just being in balance and meditating and just having that tranquility and calmness, for sure, being there. So I definitely would love to visit Yellowstone National Park. That is definitely on the bucket list for sure.
Amazing. Yeah. And I love that, especially now we're going on 2 years, I think, since the pandemic kind of first hit back in 2020. Nature has so much medicine, no matter how we feel, right, as humans, overwhelmed, anxious, depressed, no matter what we feel, nature is always there to hold you. And this, I just wanted to mention, in addition to, of course, if you have a support system, that's wonderful. But for those that don't feel comfortable sharing with anybody else, nature will always hold you. So if you can, even if if you live in an apartment, even if you can go outside and just stand outside for a little bit, there's so much medicine there. So I love, Candice, that you picked, a national park, which is beautiful and completely, nature. So yeah. Okay. The next question, we're shifting gears a little bit. What's an insult that you've received in your life that you're proud of?
I love this. So I've had a lot of insults in my day. However, two insults that stand out to me, then I wouldn't have, of course, have been happy about it. But now I can say I definitely am happy that that was an insult. I've been told that I was too sensitive. I think in a society we live in, sensitivity is equated to weakness. Sensitivity is equated to sadness. It's equated to all these kind of negative connotations, right? However, that's not true. I've learned sensitivity. I'll take it back with me, kind of where that came from. So I have a mom who is very assertive. I have a mom who is very tough love. And so growing up, I don't think she really understood who I was, who God created me to be. And I think that happens a lot, unfortunately, with parents. I think some parents want their children to be who they want them to be instead of allowing them to be who God created them, right? And so that's what happened with me. I was the type of child where I would cry, when things hurt my feelings, and, I would become very emotional, or I never really liked to fight. That wasn't something I enjoyed doing. I always wanted peace. That was just me as a child. And my mom saw that as why are you being weak? Why are you being like that? You need to toughen up. You need to get stronger. You need to, stand up for yourself and do all of these things. And so with her kind of expressing that to me, I kind of took on that learned behavior, right? When I felt myself being quote unquote sensitive, I would tell myself, well, what are you doing? You need to toughen up. You need to, stop being weak. And so what that did was it kind of manifested itself into my relationships, into my friendships, until I had an aha moment when I learned about what an empath was. I never, had heard that term. I've heard empathetic, right? But I didn't understand what an empath was. And I'll just give you all, for some of you all who are not familiar with what an empath is. So an empath is someone who, I know it sounds crazy, but an empath is somebody who can feel the energy from other people. An empath can go into a room and can feel all of the energy in the room and literally take on that energy. An empath is someone who can have a conversation with someone and can pick up on what that person is going through, even though that person didn't tell them anything. So in a way, it's almost like, I don't want to say that, but I will say it. It's almost like a prophet in a way, right? Like you can kind of pick up on a lot of things with a person and you feel what other people feel. And you truly can put yourself in that other person's shoes. And so you are more sensitive to things around you because of the gift that you have being empathetic and being an empath. I didn't even know it was a gift until I learned about it. So now being sensitive to me, I equate that to a gift. I equate that to strength. When you are a sensitive person, you are a person who you're able to truly tap into another person's hurt, and pain, and really help heal them and help them know that you truly understand where they're, coming from. And being a sensitive person is a person, normally sensitive people are really creative. They love art. They love, any performing art. I mean, anything that helps them, I don't know, to kind of get that creativeness out. So being sensitive is a positive. Call me sensitive any day of the week. I love it. So I'm happy about that insult. And another one that, interestingly enough, that I get is aggressive. I get that insult a lot. Aggressive, right? And unfortunately, again, in the society that we live in, I think society has dictated the way women should behave, women should act. And I think if there is a woman who is acting assertive, I feel like that is, they feel that's being aggressive. And again, there is a difference between being assertive and being aggressive. Being assertive, are asking those questions in an honest way, in a kind way. Okay, expressing your needs and what you're needing, and to gain a better understanding. Really showing that leadership. And being aggressive is what? Saying honesty, maybe, but are you saying it in a good tone? Are you being mean? Are you being, brutal with it? Now that's aggression, right? And aggression is forceful. Aggression is forceful. Assertiveness is not. Assertiveness is truly trying to gain an understanding so you can solve something or solve a problem. So for me, I've been told that I'm aggressive because I do have a deeper tone in my voice. And I do ask questions because I want to understand. And so I'll even go back to a situation that happened in the school system, me working in a school system. So I had a question about something with a student, and I went to my supervisor about it. So we're in this meeting and we're, having a conversation, and I asked her, I say, well, I just want to know, how do I go about this situation? Because this student, is doing X, Y, Z. And if you could, give me some, information or help me, that would be great. And so she kind of was taken back a little bit on the fact that I'm asking her these questions. And I'm taken back because I'm like, well, wait, I just want to get, a solution to the problem. That's all. So sometimes, unfortunately, some people can feel, I don't know. I don't want to say she felt that way because I don't want to ever put anything on somebody else. However, I feel like sometimes when you ask a lot of questions, some people think that you're being forceful and they think that you're being aggressive when that is not aggression at all. It's you being assertive and you wanting to gain solutions. So yeah, those are the two things: too sensitive and aggressive. But let's be clear about that aggression. I'm assertive. So sensitive and assertive. Yes, I will take the insults any day.
Yeah, I love that. And I think society nowadays, now more than ever, actually needs, individuals to be themselves in their absolute raw form, no matter what. I think the fact that, everyone is trying to be the perfect version of what somebody else thinks or tells them they should do, kind of leads to all these, mislabeling and all of that. So if everyone can just be themselves, and just be, it would be wonderful, right? Okay, the next question, Candice, I have for you are, tell me 2 to 3 things that keep you grounded on a day that presents with some challenges, maybe.
Well, first and foremost, the number one thing that keeps me grounded is God. As cliche as that may sound, it definitely is my spirituality that keeps me grounded when I feel isolated or I feel alone, or I feel like I can't maybe go any further. I know that God is there because he has an unfailing love. We know as human beings, we are not perfect. We're going to disappoint. We're going to hurt each other, not intentionally, but because we're flawed. We're human. And so for me, being able to go to God and kind of just lay my burdens to him and express to him, the heartache, the hurt, the frustration, the worries, the fears, all the emotions, and know that it's no judgment, he has a safe space for me to share that and to really trust that he's going to work that situation out for the better, definitely keeps me grounded. There's a consistent love there with him. So that's definitely number one. Another thing that keeps me grounded, my children. God has blessed me to have 2 beautiful young men who definitely keep me together. They keep me fighting, to do better, because I want to always model to them, good things. I always tell my children, I want you to just be a good human. I tell them that all the time. I just want you all to be a good human being. And in order for me to tell them that, I have to show them that. And so I definitely, try to do that. And also they help me because I have my oldest, who is very funny, very fun. He keeps me laughing. all the time. And then my youngest definitely grounds me because he always gives the best hugs ever. Love language is physical touch. So he loves hugging me. That's not my love language, but I need it, you know, sometimes. So both of them definitely keep me grounded. And another thing that keeps me grounded are my friends, you know, my family and friends, my community. You know, having a sisterhood is such a blessing and it's beautiful. SARA, you know, we met 2 years ago and you are my sister. And I'm very grateful for women of God who keep me encouraged, keep me empowered. You know, they continue to just, you know, just motivate me and help me to know that I'm headed in, you know, a good direction. So that makes me very, very happy. So those three things definitely guide me: God, my children, and of course, my friends and my family. Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. Okay. Candice, tell me about how you've changed, or how have you changed from the Candice specifically from last April of 2021?
Ooh, I've changed a lot, y'all. I've changed a lot. Of course, you know, I talked about being a people pleaser, right? It started even as a young girl, and that's something that I always did. You know, I wanted to please other people. You know, I always wanted other people to be happy, even if that meant putting myself on fire to make other people happy. And I've learned in this year that if you have a empty cup, your cup is empty. You cannot fill anybody else's cup up. And so much happened in the last few years that forced me to really look at that and really set those healthy boundaries for not only myself, but to set those boundaries for others. Really taking self-care and being intentional about self-care. And what does that look like for me? Self-care for me is going to therapy once or twice a week, exercising, you know, putting good foods in my body, whole foods, you know, that are good, vegetables, fruit, you know, water, and being able to tell people no, being able and feeling empowered to say, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now, or no, thank you. Honestly, that was very, very challenging for me to say to my family, you know, to my friends, because I always want to make other people happy, but it was costing me my happiness. And so that definitely I have changed in. My boundaries are better. And also, I'm not as much as a people pleaser, you know, working at the job that I currently was at. I always was a team player, right? Like I love working as a team. I come in positive, optimistic, happy. You know, I just always want to see other people win. And experiencing what I experienced at this recent job showed me that sometimes no matter what you do, no matter how you are, some people are just not going to like you, and some people are just not going to treat you fairly, and that is okay. But to continue to walk in that integrity within yourself and continue to be who you are. And so I've learned that, you know, not to feel like I have to please other people, you know, to set better boundaries, to truly understand self-care and what that looks like. And to also, you know, just make sure that I'm still focusing on things that are going to benefit me, so I can help benefit other people, and really growing in my leadership. I will say that I have definitely grown in my leadership skills. And one thing that I do know for certain, you cannot be a people pleaser and be in leadership at all, because it is not possible to please everyone. As long as you are pleasing God and you're doing what is righteous, then that's all you need. That's all you need. So for me, yeah, that's what it's been.
Candice, I love your answer so much, because for everyone listening, I've seen the transformation in Candice over the past year, and it's it's night and day. So it's so beautiful how much she's grown and shifted and evolved just within the past year. Okay. Next question I have for you is, looking at your life so far, what is your favorite year that you've experienced, and why?
So there's not a favorite year. There are different parts in each year that are a favorite for me. And the reason being is because each year there have been lessons and circumstances that have occurred that have taught me so much about myself. There have been good days. There have been not so good days, and all of it worked together for the good, for me. So I can honestly say in life that just kind of happens, right? Like everything that happens, it's like everything is connecting like dots, like God says, right? Like I just said, everything works together for the good. So even when the storms come, even when the storms are raging, even when it feels like I can't see my way through, that is when I have to really hone in on, okay, God, what am I supposed to learn out of this situation? Because it's something that you're trying to get out of me. And when things are uncomfortable, that is when growth can truly happen. And so that is what I can honestly say about situations that have occurred throughout the years. It's definitely have evolved me, and I've grown. So every year has been a favorite year for me, because I don't take back anything that has occurred. Everything that has occurred in my life has occurred for a reason, and I wouldn't be who I am right now talking to you all if it wasn't for those years. So each year was a favorite for me.
Absolutely. I love that. And I totally agree with what Candice is saying, right? I feel that, as souls at the very purest level, we all sort of choose the experiences that we wind up experiencing in this lifetime, right? And it's every experience leads us to another and another and another, and they all shape us into who we are and who we become. So I totally agree, Candice. Okay, so now we've arrived at the point in the interview where we're going to shift gears to some more academic education system based questions. Are you ready, Candice?
I'm ready. I was gonna say, can we have a 1 minute intermission? Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Just one.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the education system questions now. And these should be very interesting. So I'm excited, Candice, to see what you have to share with everyone. So to start out, can you describe a little bit about your experience with the education system?
Sure. Well, I'll give a little bit of background about me and education. So I originally majored in elementary education when I went to college. My family, we kind of have a history of teachers. My mom and my grandmother taught in the school system. And so the funny thing about it is when I was about 16 years old, I told my mom, I said, I'm going to California and I'm going to be an actress. And she said, what? You're going to be a what? No, I don't think so. You're going to go to college and you're going to major in education, right? And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing at all. But of course, I did go to college. And so I majored in elementary education initially. I don't know. It's just something didn't really sit right with me majoring in elementary education. And it was almost like God was saying, no, this is not it. Or now I know, not yet. So I went to a recruiter at the school for speech pathology. And I had a friend, actually, she was from Chicago. We're still friends to this day, funny enough. But she said, well, Candice, why don't you go talk to the recruiter or do a career, placement test and kind of see, what would be best for you? And I said, okay, why not? Because at this point, I just feel like I need to change my major. So I went and spoke with the recruiter, which she wasn't a recruiter. She was a program, she was a professor actually in speech pathology. And so we talked and we just had this great rapport with each other. And I found out that she went to Ohio State University and graduated from there. And I was like, oh, I'm from Ohio. And, we just had a great conversation. And I took the career placement test and found out that speech pathology was something that was one that, with my assessment, would be a career choice that would be good for me. So I said, you know what, God, I'm gonna step out on faith. I said, that's fine. I like her. She seems like she's a great person in the way she described the program and how it's helping, people. Yeah, I'll try it. So changed my major to speech language pathology, and I absolutely fell in love with the program. It gave me kind of that introduction into helping children who had deficits with speech. And that was something special to me because I grew up and I had a list. If some of you all can still kind of hear certain, words I say, you might can tell. However, I had a really, really bad lisp, and it was very challenging to say certain words growing up. And so that impacted my confidence as well. And so my mom, she bought a program. Some of you all may know what it is, but it's called Hooked on Phonics. And she really took her time with me and went over those phonic sounds and really helped me to articulate those sounds. And yeah, my mom was kind of like my speech therapist, which is interesting. And she really helped me a lot. And so being able to work with that population and children who did have, speech delays or speech deficits or articulation concerns was something that was dear to me because I experienced it. So let's fast forward it to probably my senior year in college. My senior year in college, I had to take 2 elective courses. And those elective courses I thought were going to be in speech pathology. And they weren't. Those 2 elective courses were in exceptionality, behavior management, and I'm trying to think of the other one I took, but pretty much the class was about working with students who had special needs or working with students who had behavioral concerns and how to manage that. And so, being in those courses, I don't know, it changed my perspective about a lot. And I said, wait a minute, I really, really love this. So graduated, of course, with my bachelor's in speech language pathology, or now they say communicative sciences and disorders. And so after college, I decided to apply for a reading program that they had for students over the summer. And the blessing was I was able to, get hired. However, I was not supposed to be hired as a teacher. I was supposed to be hired as an assistant, right? I just graduated from college. So I went into the program and they said, well, the teacher, has some unforeseen circumstances, so we need you to come in and be the teacher. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, I didn't sign up for this. I was just supposed to be an assistant. And so what that did was it pushed me out of my comfort zone. And it pushed me into a role that I would not know that I would be playing that role for many, many years to come. So working with children that summer really, really helped channel my passion for education and teaching and supporting students with reading deficits and, special needs. And so, I started that education journey in 2008. And I've been in the education system, man, it's been that long. It's been over a decade. It's been over a decade working in the school systems. I've had the opportunity to work in Memphis City schools, Huntsville City schools, Ohio schools, and work in different populations, rural areas, urban areas, suburban areas, diverse, populations. I've really had a great opportunity to work in different settings. And also I had a situation where I think in my mind, I was like, you know what, maybe the education system, I need to step out for a little bit, because things began to get a little political, right? Let's just be real about it. It's a lot of politics that happen in education. And so I'm the type of person where if something is not fair, if something is not right, I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to do what I feel needs to be done in order to help a student. And so working at a school, I won't name the school, but I worked at a school where I had to fight. I had to work with the union and really gain a understanding of laws, of policies, and how children are being affected. And unfortunately, sometimes when you do stand up for what is right, or you do stand up for what is truthful, you can be alienated. It's almost like the scarlet, right? That on your back. And that is kind of what I know, or I didn't know then, but I know now, was the start of my activism. I didn't know. I had no idea, right? So it's funny how things happen in our life where we think that it's to hinder us, right? Or it's destroying us, but what it's actually doing is aligning us up with our true purpose in this world. And that right there is what pushed me out to go to the mental health sector. And so I had the opportunity to work in mental health for 2 years. And what I did there was I was kind of like a liaison or a facilitator between families, school staff, and the child. And the goal was to really bring all of the supports in one room for a child. For example, if a child had autism, okay, or a child has sensory needs, and let's say they're in class and they're biting other students, or, they're being aggressive, to other students, or, they're not being accommodated, or they're not getting the things they need, or things at home parents may not be aware of, their rights, or, the things that they can have at home to help their child. That is where I would come in to bring all of the supports together in one room and come up with goals for that family, for the student, and really just progress that, right? See what that looks like over a course of time and really meet those needs of the family and the child. And so working in that environment helped, put the fire under me that, wait a minute, this is deeper. This is deeper than just academics. This is deeper than just a child's behavior. This is deeper than what? A label, right? It's deeper than that. There are families, there are parents really experiencing barriers, that are prohibiting them to truly help their child. Or there's a parent who may not even know what their rights are. They don't know what to do when it comes to the school. So a school can tell them anything because they don't know their rights. And so that definitely helped shape that desire to be a true activist and advocate for not only just students, but for families. So yeah, that is my background, pretty much. Oh, and of course, having the opportunity, God is so good, to be a holistic tutor and have a tutoring, company that kind of, well, not kind of, but it does. It caters to students who, of course, don't know what their God-given abilities are. And they, are struggling in reading, and they are portraying, low self-esteem and needing that confidence boost and needing that motivation to help them. So everything in my life, man, when I think about it, it has all kind of worked together to kind of help, form this passion for education and family. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Okay, so you kind of touched upon this a little bit, but maybe you can expand a little bit more about what is it that you do in education currently now?
Okay, so what I did do before, I was a kindergarten teacher, and I absolutely loved being a kindergarten teacher. And what I loved about it was the fact that with kindergartners, you can help mold and shape them, right? And also allow them to truly tap into who they really are. Children are just very honest, they're very kind, they're very compassionate, and you can have a lot of fun. And that was something that I did with my students. I wanted to show my students that they were capable of doing anything, that they put their mind to help affirm them to know that they are beautifully and wonderfully made, in God, to affirm to them that they are leaders, they are intelligent, the sky's the limit, and I really just wanted my students to have fun in learning and really tap into how they learn. I think that's something that is very important, because every child learns differently. And that is something, I don't know, that I know even for me as a child, right? How I learn, even as an adult now, how I learn, right? You have to know how you learn too, in order to learn. And that's something I try to do with them. So yeah, working as a kindergarten teacher, that was quite an experience. The things that I went through in this year have been very, I'll say interesting. I'll get into that another episode because it's a lot. I'm going to tap into that another episode, but you all do not want to miss that because I'm telling you, it's an eye opener and it's going to bless you, I promise. However, that is what I currently do. I am a teacher, I'm an educator, and I am the CEO and founder of Studyology, which is a holistic tutoring company. And I work with children, students ages 5 to 11 years old, of course, who are kind of struggling in those reading skills and their confidence, and just who they are. And so, yeah, that is what I currently do.
Amazing. And for all the listeners out there, that episode where Candice will kind of go into her experience with her job or working as a kindergarten teacher, you definitely don't want to miss it. There are a lot of golden nuggets there that I'm sure she will share. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, okay. So Candice, can you tell me one thing about your job that no one agrees with you about? Something that you believe to be a certain way and maybe everyone else thinks the complete opposite.
Well, I will talk about one thing that it seemed like very few people agree with me on at the recent job I was at, and that was the prison pipeline. That was understanding that classroom size matters in a school, making sure that students get the proper resources and they have the proper accommodations. This is what I would hear all the time. Oh, well, that child just needs a nap. I don't know what that means. A child just needs a nap. For me, it's deeper than that. A child who is exhibiting certain behaviors, or certain things, they need to be assessed, right? They need to have that intervention, whatever that looks like. If that looks like speech, if that looks like occupational therapy, if that looks like nutritional, therapy, if that looks like extracurricular activity, whatever it looks like, that child needs to be helped. And so what wasn't agreed upon with me a lot was coming up with a true plan and a goal for these students, and not putting it on the teacher to say the teacher has poor classroom management skills. Okay, so that is something that I think is important. And if you're an educator listening to this, a parent, administrator listening to this, it is important to understand it is not possible, okay, to accommodate 22 plus students with one teacher and no interventions, okay? And it's not fair. Please do not let anybody tell you that you have poor classroom management skills. No, thank you. Do not accept that at all, and understand your rights as an educator, okay? And the rights of the law. And so that is something that they didn't agree with me on that for whatever reason. It was always pointed back to me as a teacher. Well, what are you not doing? Well, you should try this, or you should do this. So no. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that goes back to kind of what Candice and I talked about a little bit in the first episode, of all this pressure on the teachers that comes from the admin and, higher up, and all this pressure. Oh, it's too much for one person. So absolutely, Candice. Okay, next question I have for you is, was there someone or something that specifically inspired you to pursue education, or was it more so something that you kind of discovered on your own? I know you touched upon this a little bit earlier, but just to expand a little bit.
Yes, thank you for asking that question. I think we all can agree that we all have a teacher in our lives that inspired us or motivated us, whether that was in a positive way or a negative way. And I do have a teacher that inspired me, and I wish, if you're listening, Mrs. Woods, oh my gosh, she's amazing. However, she was my third grade teacher, Mrs. Woods. And I will never forget her. And the reason I will never forget her is because she didn't allow me to just be a student in a class. She didn't allow me to just be a number. She allowed me to be comfortable with being Candice, and she wanted to know who Candice truly was. And she treated me with a lot of compassion, with a lot of care. And she wanted to know me outside of who I was as a student at school. And that was my first true experience, with that. And I will never forget, she said, well, Candice, if you make honor roll, I promise you, I will take you out for quesadillas and a sundae at Friendly's. And I'm thinking to myself, what? No, you're not going to do that. Whatever. And so that was one of the first times in my life where somebody kept their word, and she did. And I made honor roll that year, and she took me. We sat down at Friendly's, and I had my chicken quesadilla, my sour cream and salsa, and my sundae. And we just talked, and she asked me, well, how are you feeling? Are you excited? And she asked questions about me. She showed concern and care for me as a person outside of school, and understood that because of my background, right, with being in a single parent home, my mom not always could do certain things with me because she was working, right? She was trying to provide. She was trying to make sure ends met. I get that, right? As an adult, I get that. And so having that teacher to come in and take me somewhere where I always wanted to go, and I always wanted, the ice cream sundae and quesadilla, and to reward me, with that, because I think sometimes that can be an expectation for students. Well, you're just supposed to, do this, right? But to feel appreciated for doing that, that was everything for me. And she never raised her voice at me, not one time, or the class. It wasn't just me, it was the class. She truly loved what she did. She truly had a passion for education, and that was shown in her consistency, that was shown in her patience, that was shown just in her building that personal rapport with me as a student. And I will never forget her. And she definitely inspired me as an educator now to show compassion for students, and to be kind, and to really know students for who they are and treat them with respect. And love. And man, she definitely inspired me. And I have so many more teachers that have inspired me. However, that is why I am compassionate the way I am with students, is because of Mrs. Woods. Yes.
Love that. That's such a beautiful memory, even of an interaction that you had with your teacher. So I know, Candice, that you have experienced quite a bit as a kindergarten teacher and as an educator in general. But my question for you is, can you tell me two things. So first, can you tell me of a student that touched your heart? And can you also tell me about an experience with a student that forced you to sort of change your teaching style?
Awesome question. So I have many students that I have had the opportunity to support and teach who have really taught me, you know, a lot about myself. And yeah, I've had the opportunity to learn from. It's a lot, but I will talk about two experiences. So the first experience I will talk about, I'll kind of switch it up. So the first one is the one who taught me to change up my teaching style. So I had the opportunity to be a part of AmeriCorps, and being a part of AmeriCorps gave me the opportunity to work with students with reading intervention. And so I work one-on-one with a student, and I won't say his name, but I will give his initial, and his initial is J. Now, this was a student who, this is what I heard from everybody, right? Oh, you have him. Oh, good luck. Oh my gosh. All right, better you than me. I mean, you're just hearing all of these kind of negative things about him. And I'm just like, oh, Lord, what did I get myself into? And so the first time we sat down, you know, I have everything prepared. I have the book, you know, I have the lesson, I have the cards, I have everything that we're going to go over. And he looks at me and he shakes his head like, and I said, well, okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. He said, I'm not doing that. Excuse me? You're not doing that. What do you mean? I'm here, you know, to help you with reading. So we're going to do this. He said, nope, not doing it. And so that was the first time that I had experienced a student totally shutting down on me and not wanting to do anything, right? So I said, okay, well, I asked him, what do you want to do? I don't know. And I'm just like, okay, Lord, what do you have me in for? What are we doing? And so something kind of just came over me, and I said, okay, well, if we're not going to do any reading, we're not going to go over this, let me ask him some questions and really get an understanding of why he's so shut down, right? So I'm asking him questions, you know, and I said, well, you know, how are you feeling today? And he didn't answer at first. And so I'm asking more questions, and I'm like, okay, well, do you like reading? You know, do you like being at this school? You know, just asking him more questions, trying to build, you know, that rapport with him. And that first day, I didn't get anything out of him at all. I'll just be honest, I didn't. So we met again, and I said, okay, we're not going to start off with reading. We're going to start off again, getting to know each other and getting an understanding and building a rapport. So the point I'm trying to make is each day that we met, I totally took out the reading part. The most important part for him was trust. The most important part for him was rapport. He didn't know me. His background, he didn't trust me, right? We had to build a rapport with one another, and he had to be shown consistency. And so finally, over time, you know, we're meeting, he's reading, you know, he's opening up more, he's reading, we're going over different things, and I learned a lot about him. He had lost his mom. he had experienced just a lot of, and I'm sorry if I get a little emotional, but he had experienced a lot of traumatic things that a child at his age, even as an adult, it would be extremely heavy for us to experience. And so to have all of this pressure on this child at such a young age, that's when that aha moment came for me. And I said, okay, we need to kind of work through some of these things first. And he needs to know she's not going to leave me. Okay. She cares about me, and she hasn't put a label on me already. And she wants to get to know me truly for who I am. And by the end of the program, when AmeriCorps was finished, man, he laughed, he smiled, he was excited, to come to do the reading intervention. He talked more about what was going on, in his life. And what I came to the conclusion was with that, children are human. They have emotions, they have feelings. Sometimes they need to get those things out, right? They need to express and feel like they can trust that person to express it too. And then academics can take place. So that was a learning experience for me. And it still sticks with me to this day. If a child doesn't have a rapport with you or they don't trust you, please don't expect much out of that child to really get a lot academically out of them. So that was an experience. And another experience, another experience was I had a student who had autism. And she had a lot of other things going on as well. And so she came to class and she headbutted other students. She scratched other students. She hit other students. And I said, oh no, nope, we're not going to have this. You can't harm, other students. You can't, do these things. It has to be a safe environment. So I won't lie, I kind of gave up on her quickly because of that. And so she wasn't able to get into another program. And so it was almost at the time she was forced to kind of be there in the class. And over time, we set up, of course, the intervention she needed with occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. She took all three, and we all kind of collaborated, and came together to come up with a plan for her. And I remember, I will never forget, she was sitting there next to me and she wanted to take her because let me say this. Because of her autism and her sensory, sometimes students who feel overstimulated, they have to do certain things to calm their body, right? And so what she would do was dig in, right, a person's skin or, her own to kind of help calm her. And so I noticed that she was going to do that to me. She was going to do that to me. And I remember looking at her and I told her, listen, I understand that you have gone through a lot. I said, I understand that you think no one understands you because of these things, that are happening. And I know that you can't help yourself, sometimes when you're trying to, calm yourself, but we're going to have nice hands and we're not going to scratch. Okay. And so she looked at me, literally, she just stared for a little minute, and she stared at me and she kind of did her head, kind of left and right. And she did. And then she put her hand back down. And that right there was conviction for me. And the reason that it convicted me was because I allowed her label to have a misconception about who she was, right? I allowed those labels to already have a preconceived notion of the things she would do, and that she didn't understand, right? Where I was coming from with certain things. And when I said what I said and she understood, and she stopped, it really helped me to understand, wait a minute, wait a minute. This is a child. This is a human, right? She has feelings. She has, like I said to other students, it's funny how these situations happen, but she has emotions, you know, she understands what's happening around her. And that right there convicted me. And it definitely changed how I went about interacting with students, because now, of course, as an educator, it's just a label. That means nothing. They're still a child. They still deserve love. They still deserve compassion, understanding, you know, all of these things. And so as challenging as it was, I was head-butted by her, had to go to the hospital. A lot of things happened with her, but over time, she got better. And why did she get better? Because she's a human. She can feel when people truly care. She can feel when people are truly wanting to help her. And again, she can trust. She can trust. And I've learned that's what happens when labels are put on children. A lot of people think that children are not intelligent enough to understand or cognitively understand, even if, you know, quote unquote, they have sensory needs, or, you know, the labels that are put on. No, they understand a lot. And all human we want is to feel understood and loved. And so I've had a lot of experiences, but those two experiences are what convicted me, definitely. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So I have one last question for you. So what, Candice, would you like the education system to look like in 5 years? Maybe just list a few things that come to mind. It's a loaded question.
Question, you know, but this is unfiltered, right? We're unfiltered. Raw, uncut truth. And to answer that, throw away the whole education system. Throw it away. Be done with it. And the reason being is because anything starts off with a foundation, right? You have to have a good foundation in order to sustain something. And when the foundation is off, or it's uneven, right? It's not solid, it's not balanced. Things are not going to stay sturdy. They're not. And that is what has happened in the education system right now. What is it based off from? I mean, really, like, what is the goal here when it comes to the education system? So I would say the education system needs to be catered more to the well-being of a child and the well-being of families. So again, this is why we're doing a holistic meets education. I feel like an education system needs to include more environmental activities. It needs to include more hands-on experiences to help with that schema, right? For children to truly learn and understand, because you have children who are taking tests and being assessed on things that they've never experienced. How do you expect them to get a good grade or to do well on this test when they've never even experienced that? I don't know what that is. So I'm gonna guess because I don't know. I've never experienced that, right? So it's important in education for things to interest children. That just goes back to who is creating these curriculums, who is creating these things, because you have children who are learning curriculum that they can't relate to at all. And even for me as an adult, if it's something that I cannot relate to or I have not experienced, it's kind of challenging to kind of keep that in my memory. It's very challenging. So that is important for the education system. I feel like what's also important is to really, really accommodate and cater to the educators as well. I feel that's important. I feel like screening should be better. When you're screening a teacher, please get teachers who truly have a passion for what they do. I think that is important. I think a lot of educators do have a passion because they wouldn't be, in the school. However, let's be real. There are some that are just there for a paycheck, for the money. So if you truly don't even enjoy what you're doing, don't you think the children will feel that? So that's important. And also, it goes back to those laws. It goes back to those laws, to those policies, what is it standing on? That has to change. All of that has to change. So it's so much I could go into, honestly, about that. But what I want to say is just throw the whole education system away and let's start fresh. Yes.
I absolutely love that. And you couldn't have said that any better, Candice. That's the truth with the capital T. So that's the end of our interview with Candice. And again, you can check out our podcast, Holistic Meets Education Unfiltered, on Apple Podcasts. It'll be 3 episodes now, and you can also find us on YouTube as well. And our links to our individual social medias will be below, as well as our website and email and all of that good stuff. So you can check us out if you're interested. And we have a lot of exciting future episodes coming up. We're going to talk a lot more about the changes and different subcategories within the education system. And we're going to talk about how we need to take a holistic overview, like Candice was mentioning earlier. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you all. Bye.